Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table that morning? Because none of them knew who she really was. The clang of steel echoed through the gym, a rhythm of effort and breath. 6 a.m. Norfolk, Virginia. The world outside still yawned awake, but inside those walls discipline already had a heartbeat. Chalk dust drifted through the air like pale smoke, catching in the sunlight that spilled across the racks. She was there before the others always. Lieutenant Kara Hastings. To most, she was just another face among the early risers, quiet, efficient, disciplined. She didn't talk, didn't linger, didn't look for conversation. Her hair was tied in a no-nonsense knot, her motions clean, her eyes distant. But for those who paid attention, truly paid attention, there was something in the way she moved. Every stretch, every rep, every inhale calculated. There was no wasted movement, no showing off. Just a pattern of controlled precision carved into muscle and memory. She never wore anything that gave her away. No Navy insignia, no tattoos. Just a black tank, gray leggings, and that calm stillness that made others uncomfortable without knowing why. To her, this gym was sanctuary, not for vanity but for control. She'd chosen it deliberately, far from the naval base, far from the curious eyes that whispered about her service. Years of classified missions had taken everything: time, sleep, friends. Now she just wanted silence. And maybe, though she'd never admit it, normalcy. No one here knew she once carried a wounded teammate 3 miles under fire. No one knew she could shoot blindfolded at 200 yards. They didn't know she'd been the only survivor of an ambush outside Kandahar, or that she still heard the blast in her dreams. They didn't know that the smallest sound, a dropped plate, a door slam, could still make her pulse spike before she remembered she was safe. To them, she was just the woman in the corner with the steady breath. To herself, she was a soldier pretending to be at peace. She loaded the barbell. Inhale, lift, exhale. The iron obeyed her, just like her body had obeyed command after command for more than a decade. Discipline wasn't something she did. It was who she was. Then the door opened, loud laughter slicing through the still air like a blade. 3 men walked in, all bulk and noise. Contractors by the look of them. Military haircuts, gym shirts stretched across egos too big for their frames. They threw their bags in a heap near her rack, talking over the music. She didn't look up, she didn't need to. She knew their type, the kind that turned noise into armor. "Hey, sweetheart," one of them called across the floor, "you done with that rack?" She finished her last rep in silence, set the bar down gently, wiped the metal clean, and stepped aside. No words, no reaction. Her calm was her wall, and it infuriated them more than defiance ever could. As she passed, another muttered just loud enough for his friends to laugh. "Guess she's too busy flexing for her OnlyFans." The laughter came easy, the kind of laugh that thinks it's safe because no one will challenge it. Kara's jaw tightened for half a heartbeat, then relaxed. She'd endured worse. She remembered Bud's training, men twice her size telling her she'd never last a week, that she'd break in the surf before the second night. But she hadn't. She lasted, outrun them, outswam them, outlasted them all. So this was noise. And noise could be ignored. She moved to the deadlift platform beside them. They'd left plates scattered around like kids after recess. She began clearing them quietly, efficiently, until one of them, the tallest, stepped right into her path, joking with his friends like she wasn't even there. She waited patient. He didn't move. "Excuse me," she said finally, voice low, steady. He turned slowly, smirk tugging at his mouth. "Oh, I didn't see you there." "You're standing on my platform," she said evenly. He exaggerated a step aside, mock bowing. "My bad, ma'am," he said, dragging the word ma'am into mockery. His friends snorted. Kara said nothing. She adjusted her stance, set her grip, and lifted. The bar rose smooth and perfect. 150, 175, 200. Her back straight, motion clean, rhythm flawless. No grunt, no show, just power in silence. Their laughter dimmed a little, not from respect, from confusion, because confidence without words unsettles those who only know how to speak loudly. But one of them leaned close to whisper something crude. The laughter returned, louder this time, the kind that hides insecurity behind mockery. The gym staff looked up, looked away. That's how it always went. Kara racked her weights, unclipped the bar, and left without a glance. She wasn't here to prove anything. Not anymore. She fought enough battles that ended in medals and funerals. But fate doesn't respect peace. When she came back that evening, same gym, same rack, same silence, they were still there. Louder, drunker maybe, or just confident in their impunity. She tried to ignore them again, until one careless movement changed everything. The man on the bench beside her turned mid-lift, and his elbow caught her square in the face. A crack, a flash. Pain exploded behind her eye. She stumbled back, the world blurred for a second. The man froze, then smirked. "Oh," he said, mocking again, "didn't see you there." His friends chuckled. The gym went silent. Blood traced a thin line down her lip. She didn't wipe it. She just looked at him, calm, unblinking. That calm made the air heavy. "Hey," he said nervously, shrugging, "relax. It was an accident." She tilted her head, voice level and controlled. "You just made a serious mistake." Then she picked up her towel and walked away. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. The silence she left behind was louder than any shout. To them it looked like retreat. To her it was restraint. The kind of restraint that took years to master. Because a SEAL knows, the real fight isn't with fists. It's with impulse. Still, as she walked out into the cold Virginia night, something deep inside her chest stirred, something she hadn't felt in years. The heartbeat before combat, that sharpened focus, the part of her that never left the field. She inhaled the cold air, steadying herself. Not again, she thought, not here, not now. But control doesn't silence memory. She drove home through the quiet streets, headlights streaking across empty asphalt. Inside her apartment the world was still. One couch, one table, a photo frame, 11 faces, 10 smiles, one name on a headstone. Caleb. She sat cross-legged on the floor, the ache beneath her cheekbone pulsing gently. No fracture, no real damage, just the sting and the memory it triggered. She traced a finger over Caleb's photo. "You tell me to let it go, wouldn't you?" His voice came back to her from years ago, steady and calm, echoing over the sound of surf and gunfire. "Hastings, strength isn't about the fight. It's about what you choose not to fight." She exhaled. She lived by those words. Her phone buzzed, a message from Dr. Walsh, her therapist. "Remember your breathing exercises. Triggers can feel real. Stay present." Kara smiled faintly. Even now, after everything, she still needed reminders to breathe. She inhaled 4 counts in. Exhaled 4 counts out. Again and again. The anger eased, the pulse slowed. But beneath that calm, something darker smoldered. Not rage. Just awareness. The awareness that disrespect still thrived in places that should have known better, even in towns built around the Navy itself. She sat in silence, the clock ticking quietly. Midnight came and went. Her jaw throbbed faintly. Her mind replayed the moment, the smirk, the laughter, the blood. The careless elbow that wasn't just contact, it was a reminder. That no matter what she'd earned, some people still saw her as less. At 3 a.m. she finally stood. The city was silent outside. The bay lights shimmered on her window. She whispered to her reflection, "You think you can hit me," and walk away laughing. It wasn't anger in her tone, it was promise. A quiet, patient promise. The kind that doesn't seek revenge. It waits for consequence. And deep down, Kara Hastings knew this wasn't over. Outside, the wind shifted. A ship's horn echoed faintly from the harbor. She closed her eyes, grounding herself in that sound, the sound of movement, of control. Then she picked up her notebook, opened to a blank page. In neat handwriting, she wrote 5 words. Control is not surrender, survive. The pen rested still afterward. No anger, no fear. Just the quiet awareness of something inevitable. Tomorrow would come. And with it, the test of who she still was beneath the uniform, beneath the calm, beneath the silence she'd worked so hard to maintain. Somewhere out there, the men were probably still laughing. But laughter doesn't last. Lessons do. She blew out the candle on her desk. Darkness folded over the room. And in that silence, somewhere between peace and pain, Kara Hastings, Navy SEAL, survivor, soldier, prepared for a battle no one else could see. Not one fought in deserts or alleys, but in the quiet corners of civilian life, where arrogance met discipline, and only one ever walked away unbroken. Why was everyone whispering when she walked into the gym that morning? Because stories travel faster than truth. The air felt different that day, thicker somehow, heavy with curiosity, the kind that hums quietly when people pretend they aren't watching. The elbow incident had already become rumor. Kara Hastings walked through the doorway with her gym bag slung over her shoulder, calm as ever. Her face was unreadable, but inside she could feel the shift, eyes turning, voices softening, laughter dimming for half a breath. She didn't need to hear the words, she knew the tone. That's her. She overreacted. Guy said it was an accident. She ignored it all. She learned long ago that silence was the sharpest armor. The morning sun cut through the blinds, stripping the gym floor in light and shadow. She found her corner, same rack, same rhythm. Set, grip, lift. Control. Every repetition felt like defiance, not against them, but against the noise trying to take her peace. She was trained to fight battles the world couldn't see. This was one of them. But the noise didn't stay quiet for long. Cole Danner, tall, smug, the one who'd hit her, stood by the bench press with his 2 friends again. Their laughter filled the space like a dare. He caught her eye and smirked. "Oh look, it's Miss Sensitive," he said loudly, voice cutting through the clang of weights. "You okay today, sweetheart? Need me to keep my elbows to myself?" Laughter followed. She stopped mid-step. Slowly, deliberately, she turned her head. Their laughter faded when her eyes met his. Calm, level, unblinking. "Maybe," she said softly, "just learn to control your surroundings." He chuckled, a forced, uncomfortable sound. "Maybe you should learn to take a joke." One of his friends added, "Guess Navy training doesn't teach humor." Kara held his gaze for 3 silent seconds, a stare that felt like a held breath, then turned away. Not out of fear. Out of principle. Every ounce of restraint was a test, one she refused to fail. She went back to her set, every movement measured. The repetition was meditation. The silence was control. But the gym wasn't silent, not really. There was a new kind of awareness spreading now, people starting to notice. The way she moved. The way she breathed. The way she didn't flinch or fold under attention. She wasn't exercising. She was training. Her form was too precise, her stances too tactical. The faint scars on her forearms caught the light like quiet reminders. And slowly that awareness turned to respect, the kind born not of admiration, but of understanding that something powerful was being contained, not flaunted. By the time she finished her final rep, the laughter had faded into unease. Cole watched her from across the floor, still pretending confidence, but his grin had cracks now. He didn't know why he felt the way he did, uneasy, like standing too close to something sharp. Kara wiped down her equipment, packed her bag and headed out. No glance back. No satisfaction. Just quiet. Outside, the morning air was cool, the kind that smelled faintly of salt and engine oil. Norfolk's harbor glistened beyond the rooftops. She walked past rows of parked cars, her reflection sliding across windshields like a ghost she couldn't escape. She didn't know that one of the gym's security cameras had caught everything. The elbow, the smirk, the laughter, the blood. Evidence, unintended, unplanned, but waiting. It would matter soon. That night she sat at her small kitchen table, light from a single lamp washing the room in gold. Her notebook lay open beside a cup of black coffee gone cold. The same words stared back at her, control is not surrender. She added a line beneath it. Some people mistake restraint for weakness. Then she stopped writing. Because behind her eyelids, the past was replaying again, uninvited, merciless. The blast in Kandahar. The sand. The shouting. Caleb's hand reaching for hers before everything turned white. She gasped and opened her eyes. Norfolk, apartment 17B, safe. But safe was relative. For people like her, peace was something you had to practice, not something you simply lived in. She stood, poured the cold coffee into the sink, and leaned against the counter, staring at her reflection in the window. Same eyes. Same body. Different world. She'd fought insurgents who wanted her dead. Now she was fighting ghosts of ignorance that refused to die. She whispered, "You think you can humiliate me and walk away laughing." Not a threat. A truth. That night she didn't sleep. She watched the lights on the harbor fade into dawn, remembering Caleb's words again. Control the tempo, Hastings. Always control the tempo. By morning she felt steadier. Grounded. But that peace would not last. At 8:02 a.m. her phone buzzed. A message from Mark, the gym's head trainer. "Hey Hastings, can you stop by today? We need to talk." She frowned, thumb hovering over the screen. When she arrived, the gym was already humming, music thumping, weights clanging, the smell of chalk thick in the air. But when she walked in, conversation stopped again. Like wind hitting a wall. Mark was waiting near the front desk. His face said more than his words. "Kara," he said quietly, "you'll want to see this." He led her to his office, shut the blinds and hit play on a monitor. Security footage rolled, grainy black and white. There she was mid-set. Then the elbow. The blood. The smirk. The laughter. No denying, no ambiguity. When it ended, the silence in the room felt sacred. Mark turned to her. "I already reported it to the owner. They'll be suspended, maybe banned. But I figured you should know." Kara stared at the screen. Cole's face froze in mid-laugh, the moment before consequence. She smiled faintly. "Justice comes in strange forms." Mark hesitated. "You're not planning anything, are you?" She turned toward him, calm, composed. "No," she said, "I'm planning to train." He nodded slowly, uncertain whether to believe her. For the rest of the day, she pushed harder than usual. Every rep, every breath, a release. Sweat ran down her neck, but she barely felt it. By noon, most people had left except 3 men walking through the door again. Cole and his friends. Apparently, they hadn't gotten the message. He wore a sleeveless hoodie, hood up, swagger intact, his bruised pride disguised by that same loud voice. "Oh, look who's here. Guess they didn't kick you out after all," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Mark spotted him from the front desk, ready to step in. But Kara raised a hand, a subtle signal, "Stand down." She turned toward the heavy bag, slipped on gloves, tightened the straps, and began. Jab, cross, hook, pivot, uppercut. Each strike snapped the chain overhead, echoing like thunder through the gym. The bag swung, air slicing, rhythm perfect. The sound alone made people turn. Cole leaned against a bench, watching her. "Damn," one of his friends muttered. "She hits hard." Cole smirked. "Yeah, for a girl." That was it. The air went still. Even the background music faded behind the silence. Kara unwrapped her gloves slowly, hanging them on the rack. Her breathing steady, her voice low. "You really don't know when to stop, do you?" Cole chuckled, trying to mask the unease. "What are you gonna do, lecture me again?" She stepped closer, not aggressive, just near enough that he felt the shift. "You ever been in a real fight, Cole? One without an audience?" He blinked, thrown off balance by the calmness in her tone. "You threatening me?" "No," she said quietly. "I'm educating you." The smirk faltered. He swung first. A clumsy, ego-driven punch, all bicep, no control. She moved before thought, instinct taking over. Duck, pivot, shoulder grab, momentum redirected. He hit the mat hard, air knocked out of him. The gym froze. He scrambled up, red-faced, humiliated. "You're insane." "No," she said softly, stepping back. "I'm trained." He lunged again. She sidestepped, twisted his wrist, controlled his weight, and dropped him again, effortlessly, cleanly, surgically. This wasn't rage. It was choreography, years of combat condensed into seconds. Cole gasped on the floor, clutching his ribs. Kara crouched beside him, her voice calm enough to freeze the room. "You think strength is about hitting first. It's not. It's knowing when you don't have to." Then she stood and walked out, leaving him on the mat, gasping, broken but alive. Outside, sunlight spilled across the pavement, warm and ordinary, as if the world hadn't just witnessed a lesson. Mark rushed after her. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm fine." "They're calling the cops," he said quietly. "You want me to?" She interrupted. "Let them. The cameras saw everything." Mark nodded slowly. "You handled it like a SEAL." Kara gave a small laugh, the first in days. Old habits die hard. That evening she sat by the waterfront, wind sweeping through her hair. The sea murmured softly, waves tapping the dock like fingertips. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. A text. "You think this is over? You messed with the wrong guy." "Cole." She read it twice, then deleted it. No reply. No fear. Just a quiet sigh. She pulled out her old dog tag, scratched, faded but legible. "Hastings C. SEAL Team 9. She ran her thumb across the metal. Whispered, "Control, always." Then she slipped it back into her pocket. Because deep down, she knew control wasn't the absence of conflict. It was how you carried yourself through it. And while Cole Danner still thought this was about pride, Kara Hastings understood something he never would. Some battles aren't won by fighting. They're won by refusing to become the thing you're fighting against. Why did the rain feel like a warning that night? Because storms never come without reason. The clouds had rolled in quietly, hours before sunset, low, gray, and heavy, with the kind of pressure that makes the air itself seem to wait. Norfolk streets shimmered under streetlights, slick with the memory of rain that hadn't yet fallen. Kara Hastings stood by her window, coffee cooling in her hand, watching the reflection of lightning far out over the bay. She could feel it, the change. The same energy that filled her before missions, that wordless intuition that something was coming. Control, always control. She repeated it in her mind like a prayer. But control isn't the absence of conflict. It's the distance between the spark and the flame. And tonight that distance was thinning. Her phone buzzed again, another message from Mark. "You handled yourself perfectly earlier, but keep your head up, those guys aren't done yet. Cole's been drinking again." She stared at the message for a moment before replying with two words. "I'm fine." She wasn't angry. Just alert. It had been days since the gym incident. The video footage was in safe hands, the owner had promised consequences, and most people were finally seeing through the rumors. But Cole Danner wasn't one for silence. Pride like his couldn't stand still. Kara knew his kind, the type who confuse apology with defeat. The kind who couldn't live with being shown up, especially by someone they'd underestimated. And so, when she saw the same black pickup truck parked across the grocery lot that night, idling beneath the hum of flickering lights, she wasn't surprised. Just ready. The air smelled like wet asphalt and gasoline. The world had gone quiet except for the buzz of distant thunder. She walked across the lot, grocery bag in hand, boots steady, pace even. The truck door opened. Cole stepped out, bruised but grinning. "Hey, soldier girl," he called, voice slurred but sharp. "Round two." His friends followed behind, shadows at his back. Travis and Brent, three silhouettes under the yellow lights. Kara stopped halfway to her car. She placed her bag on the hood gently, the plastic rustling in the wind. Then she turned. "Round two," she repeated softly. "You sure you're ready for that?" Cole spat onto the pavement. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone." "No," she said, voice calm. "You did that yourself." His grin faltered for a second. Then the anger came, loud, performative, trying to fill the quiet she carried. "You think you're some kind of hero?" Kara's gaze didn't waver. "No, just someone who's tired of bullies." It hit him harder than a strike could. Words that landed clean, controlled. "Don't talk to me like that," he snapped. He stepped closer. His friends flanked him, confidence by numbers. The first raindrop hit the hood of her car with a soft tap. Then another. And another. Within moments, the storm broke open. The downpour soaked them in seconds, washing the night in silver streaks of water. But Kara didn't move. She stood there silent, unmoved, her calm reflecting in every drop that slid down her face. Cole lunged. No warning, no logic, just rage and rain. But she moved before his fist even reached her. Years of training collapsed time itself into reflex. She sidestepped, pivoted, redirected his momentum with a clean arm hook. His body hit the side of a parked car with a hollow clang. He stumbled back, gasping, clutching his shoulder. Thunder cracked overhead. "Stay out of it," Kara warned, voice low and sharp as the edge of a knife. But Travis stepped forward anyway, shorter, broader, fueled by liquid courage. "She's just one woman, man. Let's end this." Her hand lifted, palm forward. "You don't want to do this." They didn't listen. They never do. Travis lunged. She caught his wrist mid-swing, twisted, swept his leg clean from under him, and dropped him to the ground in one seamless motion. He hit hard, the air punched from his lungs. She crouched, knee pressing into his shoulder to hold him still. "You done?" she asked, breath steady. He gasped, What are you?" "Someone giving you a chance to walk away." She stood again, eyes shifting back to Cole. Rain poured harder now, bouncing off the asphalt, running in thin rivers between their feet. The parking lot had become a mirror of chaos and clarity, every light reflected, every breath visible. Cole's eyes burned with humiliation, his lips curled. "You think you can take all of us?" "I don't think," she said evenly. "I know." Lightning split the sky, white light turning every drop into glass. Then everything erupted at once. Brent rushed her from the side, a beer bottle clutched in his hand. It caught the light, glinting sharp for a heartbeat before she caught his wrist mid-swing, twisted it, and slammed it down. The bottle shattered against the ground, glass skidding in the rain. Before he could react, she drove her elbow into his ribs, clean and controlled, dropping him to his knees. Cole roared, charging again. But Kara wasn't fighting, not in the way they were. She was surviving efficiently, decisively, without malice, without haste. Every movement was purpose. Every strike was restraint. He swung wide. She blocked high, redirected, stepped into his space, close enough that his breath hit her cheek and struck open-handed against his sternum. The impact was enough. He stumbled backward, air rushing from his lungs, eyes wide. She didn't follow. She just stood still, breathing steadily through the storm. "You're done, Cole," she said. "Go home." But pride is a cruel master. He shook his head, wet hair clinging to his face. "No, no, you don't get to walk away from me." Then he reached behind him. Her instincts screamed. "Weapon!" Her body tightened, time slowing to the heartbeat before violence. When he lifted it, it wasn't a gun, but it was close enough. A knife. Short, serrated, ugly. The blade caught the light. Rainwater slid down its edge like mercury. "You're making this worse than it has to be," she warned. "You made me do this," he snarled. Desperation replaces arrogance when a man realizes he's already lost. He stepped forward, shaking, teeth gritted. Her breathing slowed, 4 counts in, 4 counts out. Focus narrowed, the distance, the stance, the terrain, all of it processed in a blink. He lunged. The knife came fast, clumsy but fast. She parried the wrist, twisted, stepped inside his guard and turned. Momentum and precision. The knife clattered to the pavement, skidding under a car. Before he could recover, she pushed him backward, pivoted, and let him fall into the puddle behind him. He landed hard, the breath leaving him in a single harsh sound. She stayed crouched ready, eyes on him, waiting to see if he'd move. He didn't. Rain hammered the ground. His breath came ragged. Fear, not fury, finally filled his eyes. "Who the hell are you?" he croaked. Kara stood slowly, shoulders squared, voice steady. "Someone you should have walked away from." And then the red and blue lights broke through the storm, slicing across the night, washing everything in color. Sirens, doors slamming. Officers shouting commands. The noise returned. But this time, she didn't need to make a sound. 2 officers separated the men immediately. One knelt by Cole, another approached Kara. She didn't flinch. She handed over her ID before he even asked. The officer read the card. His eyes widened slightly. "Lieutenant Kara Hastings." "Retired," she corrected softly. He looked at her, then at the 3 men soaked, bruised, trembling. He didn't need the full story. The truth was written all over the scene. "You defending yourself?" he asked quietly. "Yes, sir." He nodded. "Then you've got nothing to worry about." The knife glinted on the ground between them, the unspoken proof. The officer bagged it carefully, radioing for backup, for statements, for cleanup. But the storm was already doing that job, washing away the blood, the pride, the arrogance. Hours later, the chaos was gone. The rain slowed to a whisper. The parking lot empty except for her car and the faint reflection of flashing lights fading down the road. Kara sat inside the driver's seat, engine off, the hum of rain against glass steady as breath. Her reflection stared back, tired but unbroken. Her phone buzzed again. "Mark, cop said you handled it perfectly, proud of you." She typed 2 words back. Control held. Then she leaned back, eyes closing for a long moment. The storm had passed, but its echo still lingered, that subtle ache of adrenaline in her hands, the quiet reminder that control is not the same as peace. Outside, the lot glowed faintly under the orange street lamps. The world felt small again, quiet. She exhaled deeply, the tension leaving her body with the last remnants of thunder. It was over. Or at least she thought it was. Across town, Cole Danner sat in the back of a police cruiser, drenched, cuffed, and silent. His ego shattered, his breath shallow. The officer leaned on the open door, shaking his head. "Picked the wrong person to mess with tonight, huh?" Cole didn't answer. He just stared out at the rain, whispering to himself. She moved like she'd done this before. The officer smirked faintly. That's because she has. And as dawn began to break, the storm finally drifted out to sea, leaving the streets of Norfolk washed clean, glistening in the new light. Kara drove toward the harbor. The wipers brushed away the last of the rain, and the sun broke through the clouds like forgiveness. She parked by the pier, stepped out, and let the sea breeze hit her face. The air was cold but alive. She whispered almost to herself, "Peace isn't silence, it's surviving the noise." The tide rolled in, soft and endless, touching the soles of her boots. For the first time in a long time, she felt something close to peace, not the absence of storms, but the knowledge that she could stand through them without losing herself. And that was victory. Why did her name suddenly appear on everyone's screen? Because the world loves stories it can't understand. It started small, a local blog post. Navy veteran defends herself in Norfolk parking lot incident. Then it spread. The footage hit social media before sunrise. A shadowy video, grainy and rain-soaked but powerful. 3 men circling 1 woman. No dialogue needed. Just motion, clean, controlled, unflinching. By noon, it had over 2 million views. Hashtags appeared. Navy SEAL she didn't flinch, control under fire. The comment section exploded. Who is she? That's not training, that's mastery. Finally, someone showing restraint and power in the same breath. Kara Hastings didn't even know it had gone viral until Mark called. "Kara, you need to see this." She didn't want to, but curiosity wins small wars. She clicked the link. And there she was, a figure in rain, calm as glass, disarming 3 men with precision that looked almost rehearsed. Except it was. She watched it in silence, her jaw tightening. The world was now watching a moment she'd wanted to forget. A private battle turned into public spectacle. By evening, her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Unknown numbers, news outlets. One even left a voicemail. "Lieutenant Hastings, we'd love to have you on air to discuss women in combat." She deleted it. That night she didn't train, didn't write, didn't sleep. She just sat there in that same kitchen chair, the light soft and golden, watching the glow of her phone as new messages rolled in like waves. Praise. Admiration. Some twisted form of hero worship she didn't want. But the comments that hurt the most weren't from strangers. They were from the few teammates who still remembered her. "You always did have control, Hastings. Proud of you, LT. Guess civvies still need to learn." She closed her eyes. That word control again and again. But none of them understood how much it cost her to keep it. 2 days later, the Navy called. Official tone, polite but deliberate. "Lieutenant Hastings, this is Commander Ellery from Personnel Affairs. We'd like to request a conversation." Request, but it wasn't optional. It never was. She met them in a gray-walled office at the naval base, the kind where air conditioning hums like interrogation. The flag stood perfectly still behind the commander's desk. He was older, composed, the kind of man who'd seen too many good people burn out quietly. "Lieutenant," he began, motioning to a chair, "you've certainly attracted attention." She nodded once, not intentionally. He smiled faintly. The best kind of attention never is. Then he tapped his pen against a manila folder on the desk. "Video everywhere. And with your record the public's fascinated. Former SEAL, first female to complete the team course, retired under classified conditions. Now this." He leaned forward. "You've become a symbol." Kara exhaled slowly. "I didn't ask to be." He nodded. "No one ever does, but the Navy sees an opportunity here. Recruitment's been struggling, morale too. They think your story could help." She looked up. "You want to use the video?" He didn't deny it. We'd prefer the word highlight. Silence hung between them. She stared at the folder, her name printed neatly on the label. All the things she'd done, all the things she'd lost, reduced now to public image management. "Sir," she said finally, her voice low but steady, "I didn't restrain those men to inspire anyone. I did it to avoid killing them." He paused, pen freezing mid-tap. "I understand," he said softly. "But sometimes, Lieutenant, the world needs stories that remind it of strength that doesn't destroy." That line lingered. Even she couldn't argue with it. Still, she shook her head. "No interviews, no PR. If you want to show strength, show the women who are still serving, not the ones who walked away." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Understood, but the world won't stop talking, Hastings. You might as well decide how it remembers you." When she left the base, the afternoon sun hit her eyes, warm, bright, blinding. For a second, it reminded her of Afghanistan again. The desert light, the white heat, the hum of engines before dawn. Memories she'd buried like classified files. As she walked through the lot, a young recruit stopped her, barely 20, nervous but starry-eyed. "Ma'am," he said, voice uncertain, "I just wanted to say that video. You showed what real discipline looks like. My sister saw it. She wants to enlist now." Kara froze. For a heartbeat, her throat tightened. She didn't know what to say, so she just smiled faintly. "Then tell her this," she said softly. "Strength isn't about fighting. It's about what you choose to protect." The young man nodded like he'd just received orders. "Yes, ma'am." She watched him walk away, quick, proud, hopeful. And for the first time since the incident, something in her chest loosened. But peace never stays long for people like her. 3 nights later, her front door buzzed. Delivery. A small envelope, no return address. She opened it, inside a printed photo. A still frame from the parking lot footage. Her face mid-turn, calm, rain dripping down her cheek. And written across the bottom in black marker, "You're not finished yet." No signature, no clue. She stared at it for a long time, the weight of it cold in her hands. Was it a threat, a message, a taunt? She didn't know. But something told her this wasn't random. She placed the photo on the counter beside her coffee mug and stood there motionless. The hum of her refrigerator filled the silence. Her instincts, the ones that never really turned off, came alive again. Surveillance, awareness, pattern recognition. Someone had gone to the trouble of finding her address. Her fingers tapped the countertop slowly, rhythmically. Control. Always control. She took a deep breath and began her checklist. Windows locked. Cameras armed. Routine adjusted. Old habits resurfaced quietly, efficiently, like muscle memory. That night she slept in the living room, lights off, weapon holstered beside the couch. Rain fell again, light and steady. Her breathing matched its rhythm. And though the world saw a calm veteran on a viral clip, the truth was this. Kara Hastings hadn't stopped living in mission mode. She just learned to disguise it. The next morning, Mark dropped by. He found her sitting on the porch, coffee in one hand, the photo in the other. "You okay?" he asked, concern hidden behind a careful tone. She nodded, "Yeah, just processing." He leaned against the railing. "You know, most people would have gone on TV by now. You could write a book, tell your side, make money, maybe even change things." She smiled faintly. "You don't change things by talking, Mark. You change them by being the thing no one expects you to be." He nodded slowly, then gestured to the photo. "That's creepy, though." "I know. You gonna report it?" "Not yet." He frowned. "Why not?" "Because whoever sent it wants me to react." He looked at her like she was from another planet. And maybe, in some ways, she was. The The distance between civilians and operators wasn't measured in miles. It was measured in perception. For her, danger was never hypothetical. It was pattern, rhythm, signal. She could feel when something was off. And something was definitely off. Later that day, she went for a run along the harbor trail, headphones in, eyes scanning. Her pace was steady, deliberate, each step placed with intention. She noticed everything: reflections in windows, shadows under street lamps, parked cars that hadn't moved in days. One in particular caught her eye. A dark sedan, same model she'd seen near her building twice this week. Coincidence, maybe. But she didn't believe in coincidence anymore. She slowed her pace slightly, enough to catch the reflection in a storefront window. Driver male, mid-40s, sitting still, watching. Her pulse didn't change, her breathing didn't quicken. Control. She took the next turn casually down a quieter street, then slipped behind a row of delivery vans, waited, listened. The sedan rolled past slowly. No plates visible, tinted windows. Her instincts confirmed it. This wasn't about fame anymore. Something or someone had decided she wasn't just a story, she was a target. And that changed everything. She stood there, breathing steady, heart cold and clear. The world had seen her as a symbol of restraint. But symbols have shadows. She whispered, "So this is what you want." The wind off the harbor answered with a low hum. She didn't smile, didn't panic. Just turned and walked home, slower this time, every sense awake. Because she knew the truth. Peace had never been her natural state. Control was. That evening she packed a small black duffel bag, not for war but for readiness. Her hands moved with quiet familiarity. Flashlight, extra phone, lockpicks, combat knife, field bandages. Not out of paranoia, out of discipline. When you've lived long enough in chaos, preparation becomes peace. She paused before zipping it shut, her fingers resting on the zipper. Her eyes flicked to the window, to the reflection of a woman she barely recognized anymore. Calm, quiet, alone. The kind of person who could disappear, and no one would notice for a few days. She whispered, "You wanted control, Kara. Now prove you still have it." And as night fell again, the phone on her table buzzed once more. A message. No number. Just a single sentence. "You should have stayed invisible." She stared at the screen, heart steady, eyes cold. Then she turned it face down, walked to the light switch and clicked it off. The room went dark. Only the sound of the sea remained, constant, unbothered, eternal. And somewhere in that darkness, Kara Hastings understood the silent truth that every soldier learns too late. The world doesn't always punish the guilty. Sometimes it just tests the strong. Why did she wake before dawn, heart pounding, without knowing why? Because instinct never sleeps. The clock read 4:17 a.m. Rain again. Always rain lately, as if the sky refused to let her rest. She sat up slowly, breath steady, eyes scanning her apartment. Quiet still. But something had shifted, a detail only someone trained to notice the invisible could sense. Her weapon was still on the side table, the door was still locked. Yet the silence felt wrong. She stood barefoot, careful, moved like memory. One step, then another. Her shadow followed her across the hardwood floor. She checked the windows, intact, checked the latch on the back door, slightly off, just a fraction, enough to make her pulse quicken. She crouched, tracing the metal with her fingertip, damp. Someone had touched it recently. No break-in, no force, just presence. Someone had been here and left. Her gaze shifted to the corner of the room. The photo, the one from the envelope, wasn't where she'd left it. It lay on the floor now, face down. She picked it up. The back was wet, smudged. And beneath it a faint print, not dirt, not oil, ash. the kind used in signal work, field-grade carbon, used for leaving traces that vanish in light. Her mind pieced it together before her emotions caught up. This wasn't random harassment. It was precision. Whoever was watching her wasn't guessing. They knew how to move unseen. They knew what fear looked like and how to speak in silence. But Kara Hastings didn't scare easily. She set the photo upright again, wiped the ash from her hand and whispered, "Message received." Then she picked up her phone and called an old number she hadn't dialed in 3 years. "Kara." The voice on the other end was deep, familiar gravel and restraint. "Hey, Noah." A pause. "Didn't think I'd hear that name again. I didn't think I'd need to say it." "What's going on?" "Someone's following me," she said. "Knows things they shouldn't." The line went quiet. She could hear him thinking. "You want me to trace it?" "No," she said. "Not yet. I want to see how far they're willing to go." Noah exhaled a long, weary sound. "You always did like control too much." She smiled faintly. "It's the only thing that keeps me from breaking." He didn't argue. He never did. "I'll start digging," he said finally. "If it's connected to your service file, I'll know." "Thanks, Kara." "Yeah. Whatever this is, it's not random. Be ready for ghosts." The line clicked off. By sunrise, she was already in motion. Black hoodie, tactical shoes, a mind sharpened by purpose. The first stop, the old base storage yard, the one that still kept her personnel records archived. She didn't have clearance anymore, not officially, but clearance was just a word when you knew how to walk like you belonged. She passed the guards with a nod, carrying a clipboard she'd found in her car. Confidence was the real access card. Inside, the air smelled of paper, metal, and secrets. Stacks of file drawers, old servers humming like ghosts from another era. She went to the section marked Personnel, SEAL Program 9F. There it was, her file, thicker than most. Red tag, Restricted. She flipped it open. Training missions, evaluations. Then a section she didn't remember. Psych evaluation, post-operation Spectre. Her stomach tightened. That mission, the one no one talked about. The one that ended with Caleb gone, and her silence bought by debriefing threats. She scanned the pages quickly. And there, near the end, a signature. Not hers, not her handler. Cole Danner. She froze. Same name, same handwriting. Same man who'd accidentally elbowed her in the gym. It didn't make sense, not at first. Then the pieces aligned. He wasn't random, he was assigned. He'd been part of a buried division, Spectre Observation. Operatives used for field testing, embedded among civilians, meant to monitor the mental readjustment of special forces post-service. And somehow he'd been monitoring her. Until he crossed a line he wasn't supposed to. Until the experiment turned real. And now, he was trying to erase what was left, the proof that tied him, and maybe others, to an unauthorized operation that never should have existed. She leaned against the file cabinet, eyes closing briefly. The air felt thinner. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was cleanup. And she was the loose end. She left quietly, drove aimlessly for miles, the city blurring into nothing but color and reflection. When she reached the pier again, the sea was calm, too calm. She parked, stepped out, and stared at the horizon. The smell of salt filled her lungs. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, from anger. All this time she'd thought the past had ended, that she'd buried it with Caleb's flag. But ghosts don't die, they adapt. She pulled out her phone and texted Noah. Found a name, Cole Danner, linked to Spectre. His reply came fast. Already digging, don't move till I call. She almost laughed. Don't move, the thing no seal had ever listened to in their life. She stayed by the water for hours. The tide came and went, steady as breathing. When her phone finally buzzed again, it was Noah. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Kara Hastings, she said. A pause, static. Then a voice she recognized instantly. Cole. Well, he said softly, you found my file. Her spine straightened. You should have stayed gone. You should have stayed quiet. You were following orders, she said. Whose? He chuckled darkly. You think it's that simple. You were part of it too, you just don't remember. She said nothing, but her pulse quickened. What do you want, Cole? Closure, he said, same as you. Then the line went dead. She stood there, phone pressed to her ear, the wind pulling at her hair. That word closure echoed like a warning. She looked out at the sea. Somewhere in the gray distance, thunder rumbled again. This wasn't over, not even close. By the next morning, Noah had sent her a file, encrypted, dense, marked urgent. She opened it carefully. Inside were names, dozens, all connected to Operation Spectre. Some dead, some missing. Some still active. And one note at the bottom, handwritten. He's not working alone. The realization hit hard. If Cole had access, someone inside still wanted this buried. The surveillance, the threats, the precision. It wasn't vengeance, it was protocol. Erase the evidence, erase the witnesses. And she was both. She sat back, breath shallow. Her living room felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. Then she stood, grabbed the duffel she'd packed, pulled on her jacket. If they wanted to find her, they'd have to work for it. She left through the back alley, blending into the morning fog. The next scene unfolded like memory. An old contact in D.C., a journalist who'd once written about veterans' mental health. Name, Leila Morgan, smart, careful, someone who still believed in truth over career. Kara met her in a diner just off Route 1, quiet, tucked between warehouses. Leila looked up from her coffee as Kara slid into the booth. I heard about the video, Leila said. Didn't know you were still in the country. I didn't know anyone cared, Kara replied. Leila smiled faintly. They care now, you've become a story. I don't want to be a story, I want this to stop. She slid a small flash drive across the table. Everything you need to know about Spectre is on there. If something happens to me, release it. Leila froze. You're serious? Always. Leila hesitated, then nodded. Okay, but Kara, this isn't just classified, it's dangerous. Kara's eyes were steady. So am I. They held each other's gaze for a long moment. Then Leila slipped the drive into her jacket. Be careful, she said softly. Kara stood. Careful doesn't win wars. As she walked out into the gray light, the first raindrop hit her shoulder again. Always the rain. Always the reminder. The world had tried to turn her into a symbol. But symbols don't bleed, and they don't break. She was neither hero nor headline. Just a soldier trying to end a war that never officially began. That night she parked her car overlooking the city. The lights shimmered like reflections of memory, bright but distant. Her phone buzzed once more, a message from Noah. Got confirmation. Danner isn't acting alone. You're being monitored by someone inside. Don't go home. She exhaled slowly, eyes closing. No home, no safety, no peace. But even as the world closed in, she felt something she hadn't in months, clarity. You can strip a soldier of uniform, of mission, of recognition, but not of instinct. She whispered to herself. You wanted control, Kara. Now it's time to use it. She started the car, engine rumbling softly beneath the rain. Then she drove toward the darkness, not away from it. Because sometimes, survival isn't about hiding. It's about confronting what hunts you before it finds you first. Why was she driving toward the place that broke her? Because unfinished wars call louder than peace. The highway stretched like a scar beneath her headlights, endless, silent, familiar. Rain trailed along the windshield in thin, silver lines, catching flashes of the city behind her. Norfolk faded. The road to D.C. swallowed her in shadow. Kara Hastings didn't need maps anymore. Her instincts remembered every turn, the routes they drilled into her years ago, the safe houses, the checkpoints that no longer existed but lived inside her muscle memory. She drove without music, without noise. Only her thoughts filled the silence. Caleb's voice again, soft, teasing, uninvited. If the mission ever comes back for you, Hastings, promise me you'll finish it. Don't run from ghosts. Make them remember who you are. She whispered into the dark, you always were bad at letting things go. And for the first time she smiled. A small, broken smile. The wipers brushed away another layer of rain. And the city lights of Washington, D.C. began to bloom on the horizon, a constellation built from power, secrets, and silence. By dawn, she parked 2 blocks from the old Naval Data Hub, Facility 47B, an innocuous-looking government building that most people passed without notice. To anyone else, it was just another gray monument to bureaucracy. To her, it was the birthplace of Spectre. The first time she'd been here, she was 27, still new, still proud. She remembered the cold smell of metal, the echo of boots on tile, the briefing room where they'd said words like national interest and psych resilience experiment. She believed them. Until the experiment became a test, one that left her team broken and 1 man dead. Now she was back, and she wasn't asking permission. Inside, the air felt the same, sterile, controlled. Every corridor identical, designed to confuse. But she knew the pattern: security at 20-second intervals, cameras rotating every 12, blind spots every 9. She moved like silence itself, blending, breathing with the rhythm of the hum around her. Down 2 halls, left through the old comms wing, 3rd door with a broken access reader. Still broken, still her entry point. She slipped inside. The room was dark, cold, lined with humming servers stacked like tombstones of memory. Each one held ghosts, operations sealed, erased, rewritten. She pulled a small black device from her pocket, Noah's work, plugged it into the console. The screen flickered to life. Code scrolled. Then a file name appeared that made her heart stop. Project, Spectre 2017-2021 classification, Obsidian Black. She opened it. The first line read, Subject Cohort, Naval SEAL Division 9, Phase Control Protocol. Objective, measure neural compliance through psychological stress and social reintegration triggers. She read it twice. Every word hit like shrapnel. They hadn't just monitored her, they'd engineered her fall. The reassignment, the therapy, the staged discharge, the random harassment. It was all deliberate. A way to see if control could survive betrayal. She scrolled further. And there's her name, highlighted. Subject C09, exhibits high suppression stability. Recommend external provocation to test boundary thresholds. She stopped breathing. External provocation. Cole. They sent him. The file continued. In case of destabilization, Subject C09 may be neutralized under Directive 47B, containment through discredit. Her hand clenched into a fist. The cursor blinked, silent and unfeeling. They'd planned to destroy her, if not physically, then publicly. But something they hadn't planned for, she'd survived the test. She whispered to the dark. You wanted to study control. You should have known it has consequences. A noise. Footsteps. Someone else was here. She unplugged the drive, slipped it into her pocket, and moved into the shadows. The footsteps grew louder, 2 sets, maybe 3, boots, trained rhythm. Security patrols didn't move like that. These were operators. The door opened, flashlights swept the room. She stayed low, behind the last row of servers, holding her breath. One voice, male, firm. Command wants confirmation. Hastings accessed the file. A second voice. She's still here. Motion sensors triggered, east corridor. Orders. Same as always. Contain the variable. Contain. The word echoed like gunfire. She moved before they finished their sweep. Quiet, fluid, controlled. 2 steps, then a breath. A gap between light beams. She slipped through it, blending with the hum of machinery until she reached the door again. But as she turned the handle, a beam of light caught her face. Freeze! Her body reacted before her brain could. She pivoted, kicked the light upward, sending it clattering into the ceiling, and drove her shoulder into the nearest man. Momentum, precision. He hit the ground, weapon sliding away. The other drew his pistol. She dove behind a terminal as gunfire cracked the silence, the sound muffled but deadly. Sparks flew off metal. She grabbed the first man's fallen weapon, rolled to the side, and fired once, low, deliberate. A hit to the shoulder. Not lethal, just enough to make him drop. Then silence. Just the whir of cooling fans. She waited. Counted. 3 breaths. 4. Then she moved again, fast and low, through the maintenance hatch she'd once used during training. It led to a service stairwell that opened behind the building. She emerged into the cold air, dawn rising, sky bleeding pale blue over DC rooftops. Her heart was steady, her hands still. Control held. Barely. She took a breath, looked back once at the gray building, and whispered, "You studied me, now it's my turn." Hours later, she sat in a safe house across the river, Noah's doing. Concrete walls, flickering lamp, a small cot in the corner. He arrived quietly, laptop under his arm. "You really know how to wake up a security network," he muttered. "Had to see for myself." He set the laptop down and looked at her. "You got the file?" She nodded, slid the drive across the table. He plugged it in. The screen lit up with classified headers, seals, data charts. After a minute, he exhaled. "Jesus, Kara, they didn't just test you, they built you into a weaponized study. Controlled trauma, measured resilience, psychological endurance under manipulated stress." She said nothing, just stared at the screen. "You were one of 9, he continued. 8 others all gone." Her voice broke the silence. "Caleb." Noah hesitated. "Yeah, he was one of them, the first to fail." Kara's throat tightened. "He didn't fail, he followed orders." Noah looked at her carefully. "Maybe the wrong ones." She looked away, eyes burning. For a moment, the sound of gunfire and sand filled her memory, that night in Kandahar when everything fell apart. The explosion, the screaming, Caleb pulling her behind cover before the world turned white. She could still feel the heat on her skin, the dust in her mouth, his hand slipping away. And now, years later, she finally understood why that mission had gone wrong. It hadn't been sabotage. It had been part of the test. Tears welled but didn't fall. She whispered, "They killed him to study me." Noah didn't answer. There was nothing to say. She stood slowly, packing the narrow room. "We release it, everything. The files, the names, the footage." Noah shook his head. "You'll be hunted. These people don't answer to oversight, they are oversight. Then they'll learn what accountability feels like." Her voice was quiet, but it carried the kind of weight only soldiers who have lost everything can speak with. He looked at her for a long time, then finally said, "Okay, but we do it smart. I can ghost route it through 5 nations, drop it to journalists in encrypted fragments. It'll take time. Do it, she said. He nodded, typing fast. She walked to the window, watching the Potomac shimmer under the morning sun. Peaceful, deceptively so. For the first time in years, she felt purpose again, not assigned, not ordered, but chosen. That night, she slept for the first time in days. Her dreams were fragments: Caleb's laughter, the crash of waves, the echo of gunfire that became rain. When she woke, Noah was gone. The laptop still open, files uploading. A note on the table. Had to move, someone's close, finish what you started. Her gut twisted. She looked out the window. Across the river, movement. A dark van parked too still. She closed the laptop, slipped the drive into her pocket, and grabbed her bag. As she reached the back door, the first sound of engines filled the air. 3 vehicles approaching fast. Her heartbeat slowed. Mission tempo. She whispered, "Control, always control." Then she moved. Out the side alley, through the chain-link fence, across the narrow canal bridge. The city felt alive again, lights flickering, sirens distant, the hum of pursuit growing louder. But she wasn't running anymore. She was drawing them out. By the time the black SUVs reached the safe house, she was already gone. Only a single message remained on the table, written on the back of the note Noah had left. "You tried to study me. You should have learned control isn't something you measure, it's something you earn." Inside the laptop, the final upload completed. 100%. Transmission sent. Destination unknown. The truth was out. And as the first agents entered the empty room, the screen went black. Somewhere across the world, journalists began receiving encrypted files, and with them, the story of a woman the system tried to erase. Kara Hastings didn't need revenge. She needed release. And that's exactly what she'd found. She disappeared into the rain again, the night swallowing her silhouette. Freedom not from war, but from silence. Why do people cheer for heroes they'd never protect? Because admiration costs nothing, but standing beside truth always does. The morning the files dropped, the world fractured. Screens lit up, headlines screamed. Operation Spectre exposed. Classified human experiments linked to Navy SEAL Division. Government denies involvement. Whistleblower video surfaces. You tried to study me. Her voice, her image. Everywhere. The video Noah had queued uploaded itself at dawn. Kara's calm. Steady narration over fragments of documents, redacted names and official seals. No embellishment. Just truth stripped of theater. Within hours, it spread faster than any algorithm could control. Talk shows, newsrooms. Every channel, every screen. Her face, still, resolute, unsmiling, became a symbol no one expected. To the public, she was courage. To the government, she was a breach. To the ghosts of Spectre, she was a threat that hadn't been neutralized. And somewhere in that triangle of chaos, Kara Hastings simply existed. Watching it all from a half-lit motel room outside Baltimore. One lamp, one window. Her reflection half hidden in shadow. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number again. She hesitated, then answered. Still alive. Noah's voice, rough, tired, but alive. "I thought they got you," she said quietly. "They almost did," he said. "Had to burn 3 fake IDs and 1 safe house, but it's done, the story's everywhere, they can't erase it now." She nodded to herself. Good. There was a pause. Then Noah's voice softened. "You realize what this means, right? They'll never stop looking. You expose something they built their careers on." "I know. You have a plan." "Survive." A brief silence, then faintly, "You sound like Caleb." She smiled barely. He'd be laughing right now, probably telling me I took too long. Noah's laugh was small but real. He always did like your stubbornness. Yeah, she whispered. He called it my worst weapon. Then softly, Noah, thank you. Don't thank me yet, he said. The agency's activated a recovery team. Black clearance. They're not coming to arrest you. They're coming to disappear you. I figured, she said. Kara, I'll handle it. Then she hung up. The silence returned, heavy, familiar. Outside, the rain began again, the world's constant background music. She stood by the window, watching the drops race each other down the glass. Some collided, some broke apart. All ended the same. Her reflection stared back, tired, hollow-eyed but calm. Freedom wasn't peace. It was just the right to fight your battles on your own terms. She turned from the window and began preparing. The motions came naturally. Pack light. Cover tracks. Change appearance. Hair pulled back tight. No jewelry. Neutral clothes. Not for disguise. For discipline. Because when the system hunts you, you can't afford to look like anyone at all. By evening, she was already on the move again, a train heading north, dim lights flickering as it cut through fog and countryside. She sat in the last car, facing backward, watching the world retreat instead of approach. Every station passed like a ghost town, people with phones in their hands, faces illuminated by her story, unaware she was sitting among them. A mother scrolled past an image of Kara's face and whispered to her child, "See, honey, that's what bravery looks like." Kara turned her gaze toward the window. If only they knew that bravery isn't loud. It's quiet, lonely, paid for in silence and blood. She closed her eyes. Caleb's voice again. Control isn't about who you fight, Hastings. It's about what you refuse to become. When she opened them, the reflection in the glass looked different, steadier. She whispered, "I'm not them." At 10:43 p.m., the train stopped in Philadelphia. 3 men in plain suits entered the car. Their eyes scanned every face. Their pace slow, methodical, predatory. She recognized the posture instantly. Special operations, not cops, not FBI. Government muscle trained for recovery. They didn't have to say a word. She knew why they were there. She waited until they passed her row, then slipped her bag under her seat, stood calmly, and moved toward the next car. One of them turned. "Ma'am, ticket check, please." She didn't even flinch. "Sure." As she reached for her pocket, he caught sight of the tattoo on her wrist, the faint outline of a trident faded by time. Recognition flashed across his face. She moved first. Her elbow hit his sternum, not hard enough to break, just enough to make him fold. The second man reached for his weapon. She grabbed the seat rail, pivoted, kicked the gun sideways, sent it spinning under a row of chairs. The third man lunged. She sidestepped, grabbed his coat, and used his momentum to throw him into the aisle. Passengers screamed. The train screeched as it hit the next curve, throwing everyone off balance. She used the chaos, slipped through the connecting door, and disappeared into the next car before they could recover. She didn't look back. She just kept walking. Calm, steady, silent. Control always. She exited at the next stop before the train even slowed fully, blending into the night crowd. The cold bit her skin, but she barely noticed. City lights, sirens, the hum of life that didn't know her name. Freedom in anonymity. She ducked into an alley, checked her pulse still steady, then took out a burner phone. One message from Noah. "They found me, don't come back." No response after that. Her heart sank, a quiet, heavy ache that had no room for words. She stared at the screen until it went black. Another person gone because of her truth. For a moment the rain blurred everything, streetlights, reflections, her own thoughts. Then she whispered, "I'm sorry, Noah." Not because she failed him, but because she couldn't save anyone anymore. 2 days later, the world was still burning with her story. Protests in front of military offices, demands for hearings. The government's official stance: no evidence confirms the authenticity of these documents. But evidence had already spoken. And Kara Hastings had become the face of everything they couldn't deny: control in chaos, truth in silence, dignity in the face of betrayal. She sat in a diner somewhere in upstate New York, hood up, coffee cold. A small TV in the corner played the news. A senator was speaking. "We must investigate these allegations thoroughly. If this program existed, it violates not only law but humanity." For the first time in months, Kara felt something like hope. Not in herself, in the possibility that someone else might finally stand up. She didn't need to be the hero. She just needed the truth to live longer than she did. As she stood to leave, the waitress, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, stopped her. "Hey," she said softly, "you look like that woman from the news." Kara froze. The waitress smiled, small and knowing. "Don't worry, I won't say anything, just thank you. My husband served, came back broken. If people had told the truth back then, maybe." Her voice trailed off. Kara met her eyes, no words, just understanding. Then she whispered, "Tell him he's not broken, just bent. Bent things still work." The woman smiled through tears. "God bless you." Kara nodded and stepped back into the cold. The snow had started falling now, soft, slow, forgiving. For once, not rain. That night she found refuge in an old church outside town. The kind that stayed unlocked, trusting in grace more than locks. She sat in the back pew, the faint sound of wind slipping through stained glass cracks. Candles flickered near the altar. The smell of dust and wax filled the air. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Caleb, if you were here, you'd probably tell me I went too far." No answer, of course. Just the creak of old wood and the heartbeat of silence. She smiled faintly. Then she spoke again, quieter this time. "But I think I finally understand what you meant." She looked up at the cross, not for religion but for meaning. "Control isn't about staying calm," she said. "It's about staying human when everything else tells you not to." A tear rolled down her cheek. She let it fall, didn't wipe it away. Because this one wasn't grief. It was release. Outside, headlights swept across the church wall, brief, sharp, gone again. She watched them fade. The hunt wasn't over. But for the first time, she wasn't running from it. She had faced her past, exposed the truth. If they came for her now, they'd find not a fugitive, but a woman who'd already won the war they didn't even know they'd lost. She stood, the echo of her boots soft against the stone floor. As she reached the door, the snow had stopped. The moonlight fell across her face, pale and calm. She whispered one last line to the empty night. "You tried to measure control, but you can't quantify conscience." Then she walked into the cold, her silhouette vanishing against the quiet horizon. Somewhere far away, the world was still shouting her name. But in the silence between snowflakes, Kara Hastings finally found peace, not in being understood, but in knowing she never betrayed who she was. Why do some wars end only when we stop fighting ourselves? Because sometimes the enemy isn't out there, it's the echo within. The snow had turned the world white, quiet and still. Each flake landed like forgiveness on the earth that had seen too much. Kara Hastings walked down the empty road just before dawn, her breath visible, her pace steady. Her bag was light: a few clothes, a passport, the last of her cash, and a flash drive she no longer needed but couldn't yet throw away. The horizon was turning from black to blue. She hadn't slept, but exhaustion had stopped meaning anything days ago. Every step now felt symbolic. Not toward escape, toward closure. She reached a small bridge overlooking a frozen river, the kind that looked solid but cracked beneath pressure, much like her own reflection. Leaning on the rail, she looked down at the still surface, the world upside down, quiet, calm. For a moment, she could almost see him again. Caleb laughing, wind in his hair, leaning against that same old jeep they driven through Afghanistan's dust storms. He looked young again, untouched by orders or guilt. She whispered, "You were right." The words drifted away with her breath. "You said peace wasn't the end of battle. It was what you protected while fighting it." The wind picked up, scattering snow across the bridge. Behind her, the low hum of an engine broke the silence. She didn't turn right away. Didn't need to. She already knew who it was. The black SUV stopped 30 feet away. The door opened. Cole Danner stepped out. No suit this time, no swagger. Just a man worn hollow, haunted. He didn't speak at first, neither did she. The river whispered below, a frozen current carrying everything unspoken between them. Finally he said, "You win." She turned slowly, her breath steady in the cold. This wasn't a competition. Then what was it? Correction, she said, for both of us. He gave a bitter laugh. You think this fixes anything? The files, the leak, you just painted a target on everyone involved. You've got no idea what they'll do to bury this. I do, she said quietly. That's why I made copies. His eyes flickered, part shock, part respect. Of course you did. He took a step closer. You always were the one they couldn't break. That's why they picked you. Picked me for what? He looked down, exhaling smoke into the cold. They wanted to see what happened when a soldier designed to protect was betrayed by the very system she served. You were the final phase. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned. You mean they wanted to break my mind? He nodded, and you didn't let them. You ruined the experiment. I didn't ruin it, she said. I ended it. Silence again. The snow thickened. He shifted his stance, looking smaller now. Not a handler, not an operative, just a man consumed by guilt. I never meant for it to go this far, he said. You elbowed me in the face, she reminded him softly. His voice cracked. That was part of the protocol, to provoke, to trigger. To humiliate, she interrupted. He nodded once, ashamed. They told me it would prove control, that if you restrained yourself, the program could be considered stable. She looked at him for a long moment, then said quietly, You wanted to prove I was still human. He hesitated, and you did. But you stopped being one, she said. That landed like a punch neither of them wanted to throw. For a moment, the only sound was the whisper of wind through the trees. Then she asked, Why are you here, Cole? To warn you, he said. They sent another team, not to recover, to erase. She gave a small, almost tired smile. They always do. This isn't a joke, he said. You've got less than an hour before they sweep this area. And you? He looked away. I'm done running errands for ghosts. I came to end it my way. Something in his tone made her shift slightly, instinctively. He saw it. Relax, he said. I'm not here to kill you. He reached into his coat pocket slowly, pulled out a small black drive, identical to hers. Backup of everything, he said. Names, orders, locations. He tossed it toward her. She caught it effortlessly. Why give me this? Because someone has to live to remember, he said. And between us, you're better at surviving. She frowned. What about you? He smiled faintly, broken, human. I'm tired of surviving. Then, before she could answer, a red dot appeared briefly against his chest. Her instincts screamed before the gunshot even came. She dove forward, shouting, "Down!" The crack echoed through the valley, scattering birds into the gray sky. Cole staggered, stumbled back against the SUV, eyes wide in shock. She caught him before he fell completely. Blood darkened his jacket instantly. One shot, clean, center mass. She pressed her hand against the wound. "Stay with me." He tried to speak, but his breath came out as a thin, cold whisper. They don't want the truth, just silence." "I know," she said, "but not this time." He met her eyes, regret, relief, peace. Then nothing. She lowered him gently to the snow. And for the first time since the desert, she let herself grieve. The distant hum of engines grew louder, approaching fast. 3 SUVs, black, coordinated. She rose slowly, her face unreadable. She didn't draw her weapon, didn't run. The snow fell heavier now, mooting everything. The world seemed to hold its breath. When the vehicle stopped, armed men stepped out, faceless, precise, cold. The leader raised a megaphone. "Kara Hastings, you are under federal order to stand down." She raised her hand slowly, palms open. But her voice carried, calm, powerful, deliberate. "You already tried to bury the truth. Now the whole world's seen it." "Turn yourself in," the voice ordered. She looked down at Cole's body, then back at them. "No," she said quietly, "I'm done being your test subject." The man hesitated, his orders meeting the weight of her words. Before he could speak again, a new sound cut through the air, a helicopter, descending fast. Media insignia on its side. They'd found her, the press. The agents froze, uncertain. She stepped forward, snow crunching under her boots. "If you shoot now," she said, "you prove everything I've said." Silence. One moment suspended in time. The lead agent lowered his weapon first. Then another. Then another. She exhaled, slow, controlled, final. By the time the reporters reached her, the SUVs were gone. Vanished like the shadow they'd always been. They asked questions she didn't answer. Names, motives, government statements, noise. She simply said, "The truth doesn't need permission to exist." Then she walked away. No arrests, no gunfire, no more words. Just the quiet strength of someone who refused to disappear. Weeks passed. Investigations launched. Leaders denied, deflected, dissolved. But the files lived, the evidence spread. Some called her a traitor. Others a hero. She ignored both. Because labels never mattered to soldiers. Only the mission did. And hers was finally complete. Months later, far from the headlines, a small coastal town became her refuge. She rented a cabin near the sea, wooden, simple, far from the noise. Her mornings began with coffee and silence. Her nights ended with the sound of waves and the crackle of a small fire. Sometimes she wrote, not reports, not debriefs. Just reflections, fragments of thought no one would ever read. The hardest part isn't surviving the mission, it's surviving what comes after. Strength isn't about power, it's the grace to hold peace in your own hands. She never signed them. She didn't need to. The ocean knew who she was. One evening, she walked down to the shoreline as the sun dipped low, orange and gold washing across the waves. She held the final flash drive in her palm, the last piece of the story. She looked out at the horizon, the wind brushing her hair, and whispered. This was never about revenge, it was about memory. Then she tossed it into the sea. It sank quietly, swallowed by the deep, the way truth often is. But like truth, it never really vanished. It simply changed form. She stood there for a long time, the tide curling around her boots. For the first time in years, no one was watching. No missions, no orders, no noise. Just silence. earned silence. Later that night, the stars came out cold, clear, infinite. She sat on the porch, blanket around her shoulders, listening to the wind move through the trees. In the distance, a ship's horn sounded, low, steady, human. She closed her eyes and smiled. If anyone had been there to hear her final words, they might have sounded like prayer. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. The wind carried her voice toward the sea, soft, unwavering, infinite. And with it, the memory of a woman who refused to be defined by what broke her. Because in the end, Kara Hastings didn't conquer the world. She simply refused to let it conquer her.